Hey everybody, Dr. Fisher here. We're going to wait just a minute here, make sure that I have all of my settings turned on correctly. All right. So, welcome. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment over in the comment section next over here. So today what we are talking about the fact that here at the new year, especially this year, this has been such a divisive year. It's been so polarizing, it's been chaotic, it's been difficult. So I would love to hear from you, and I know this is a funny way to start how to be healthier this year, but I would like for you to comment over here in the comments below, either below or over the side, whichever side it is for you. What has been the most difficult part about this year for you? I'll do my best to interact with you here as I go along. I have a nice little presentation set up for this evening. So what's been the most difficult part about this last year for you? For me, it's been the unknown of, what's happening with my own kiddos, trying to get back into the swing of things with post-COVID. We're still, I think most of us were kind of traumatized by that whole process. So this is the beginning of a new year. We talk about, starting over. Last night we watched the New York ball drop. It's like, boom, the ball dropped. Oh my gosh, everything's better. Is it? It's interesting because as we become adults, oftentimes we recognize there's a lot of little nuances that make a difference in our new year. Now, the goal here today is to be able to give you some information that may help you be healthier this year, stay healthier this year. And so there are going to be a ton of things that you've been hearing about, right? More isolation and struggles with transition. That's actually happening all over the place. People are more scared. So somebody commented, there's more isolation and there's more transitional periods. And it's hard with those because a lot of us are kind of traumatized with interacting with each other. I have seen this over and over and over again from a clinical standpoint that people are really struggling to feel comfortable being together, for lack of a better term. And that obviously is a complicated sort of situation. People moving away, right? That happens, right? Lots of trauma. People moving away, whether they actually physically move away, as in your situation, emotionally move away, their life transitions, their setups, different things happen. People change. We move away from each other. There's so many complications in real life. As we become adults, oftentimes I think back to the time when I was a child when I thought that life was going to get easier as I got older, that it would be more black and white, right? But black and white perspectives are either you're in a childlike state when you're in a black and white state, or you're in a stress response and your brain can only handle two options. So with all those things, right, this idea of being isolated, family moving away, maybe you've had life circumstances, people's jobs and things have been on rocky edges with the economy and those sorts of situations. Maybe you've got a stressful family situation because of all the chaos with politics and whatnot. Whatever it is, whatever your situation is, this year, what I want you to do is I want you to be able to take a moment and pause and kind of slow down and recognize what it is that you can do for yourself this year that will improve your own health, that will help you not only improve your health in the short term, but in the long term, and get you to stay there. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that you had a puppy that had some illness. That's no fun either, right? So these different stressors. So one of the first things you can do, especially for those of you who are commenting over in the comments, Kirsten Neff is one of my favorite people to kind of pull up in these difficult situations. Especially in those situations like those of you who shared with me that you're a little more isolated. To be human is to be connected. And so the more disconnected we become, there's a level of trauma that actually happens from that. And so Kirsten Neff talks about the idea that the idea is we need to have self-compassion. So, for example, with each of you who've made comments to me this evening, I want you to take a moment, if you would, put your feet flat on the ground, take a couple of breaths, and really take an honest look at yourself and recognize that right now you are hurting. And that's part of being human. Now, if you have the opportunity to have somebody else reach out and hold space for you, that's going to be an important and helpful healing aspect of this, but also to be able to hold space for yourself and recognize that you are suffering, and to be able to hold space for yourself, maybe open up a little more space for yourself, and to be able to support yourself, whether it be kind of goofy, it feels kind of goofy, but giving yourself a hug, recognizing and honoring the fact that you're really having a hard time. This level of self-compassion will help be one of those things that helps sustain you as you struggle and or as you transition this next upcoming year. It's going to be, from my perspective, especially if you're in a shame place, one of the most important things you need to work on doing and incorporating into your life in order to be able to continue to move forward in that change. When you're in those days, you're just having a really hard day and you're having a shame-filled day and you just feel kind of down and whatever else, to have and hold space for yourself and have that self-compassion from Kirsten Neff, super solid information. Brene Brown talks about it all the time as well. So a couple of things I want to cover today really quickly. Here's another comment. Oh, yeah. Different things that have impacted your business, for sure. So we're going to talk about that, right? So I want you to take and hold space for whatever's happening with you in your life. And so right now is a time of self-reflection. We're gonna look at what's happened this last year. Where are you? Hold space for yourself, because that may be a shocker too, right? To really be an adult and to honor the complexities of where your life is, where you don't want it to be, where it actually is, myself included, right? And so we want to talk about a couple of different things here. We want to talk about goals, standards, and the different challenges that come with this next year as we start over and start anew, if you will, right? It's just like waking up in the morning. Every morning we kind of start over, we start anew. And it's beautiful to have these start over places, but oftentimes it's hard for us to kind of work through that process and whatnot. So we want to talk about a couple of different things. Goals. You hear goals all the time. And I want to try and make this relatively concise. But again, for those of you who have already commented, I would like for your feedback here. I'm going to talk about goals. I'm going to talk about standards. I'm going to talk about challenges. I'm going to talk about weight loss and detoxing. If there are anything specific additionally that you would like for me to talk about, please mention it over here. Maybe I'll make a little quick note about how that we can incorporate some of these things we're talking about into your awareness of where you are, where you have been, and look at that trajectory, right? So it's kind of like, I was listening to somebody describe what happens when we are in the forest. And if you drop any random person in the forest, this is kind of an interesting, weird tidbit. Drop a person in the forest, have them start walking forward, and try and have them walk in a straight line. Guess what happens? The majority of the time, they walk in circles. Because if we have no frame of reference, we don't know where we're going, it's really, really hard to kind of navigate. So one of my favorite ideas that I think of in relationship to that is this idea of during that New Year time, it's that time to climb up the tree, shimmy up the tree, or send your crazy friend up the tree, and to go to the top of the tree and to look out and see what's going on in your surroundings so that you have an idea of where you are and where you want to be. So if you don't know where you want to be, then it's very, very difficult to be able to go anywhere. If you don't know where you want to go, right, then why even move anywhere? So we're going to talk about some of those things. Now, there are different kind of time lengths. The idea is you can kind of shrink that up in short time frames. You can look at that long term. One of the most important pieces here is to be able to recognize that if you're setting yourself up for failure in doing too much, for example, or doing too little and not moving forward, it's this special balance. And for those of you who stay to the end, if you want, I'm going to give you a a SMART goals list and or a cheat sheet, if you will, in order to be able to kind of have you sit down and look through this process and kind of see, as you kind of shimmy up your own tree, where you are, where you came from, and where you want to be. If that's something that's interesting to you, go ahead and make that comment over here on the side so I have reference for that afterwards. All right, so life is full of challenges. We're feeling abandoned, we're feeling isolated, we're sick, we're whatever our circumstances, family moves away from us, our job changes, life circumstance changes. Like, these are the normal part and patterns of being a human being. They're not easy. So how do we navigate this into a position where we can actually find success with these things? So again, a big part of this is this idea of being able to have access to look, right, and have direction, and to have assessment of where you just were, where you are now, where you want to be moving forward. Because if you don't know, it's really hard to get there. Now, a lot of people also, especially in that situation where you feel abandoned or you feel isolated, another big part of finding success is being able to have somebody else there for you as a companion, a support, a connector, an encourager, whatever that may be for you. We often, and or as being a human being, we need other people. But specifically in relationship to your goals, you may need a different set of people. It may not just be one person, it may be a combination of people. Now, there are different things that go along with, for example, goals. Goals are usually set up in little small pieces, in bigger pieces, and so there's different variations of that, like I just described. Standards are slightly different. Standards are like, I like a mechanical toothbrush, the ones that vibrate really, really fast. I don't want to go back to just like a normal toothbrush. Any of you here who likes a fancy toothbrush, please comment over here on the side just for fun. But again, standards are one of those things where what's your normal every day? For me, I go to the gym at least 3 times a week. That's just something that if I don't do that, I'll lose my mind, right? So standards are a little more firm in place. So there's something that you have assessed and or assimilated into, that you've made a program that makes that kind of consistent. Yes, electric. Not sure. Give me a little bit more context of yes, electric. Remind me of what the question was. I don't see the questions right away. Oh, worksheets. Okay, great. Yes. So a couple of other aspects of this too are these idea of challenges, right? So we make challenges for ourselves along the way. Oh, you like a toothbrush? I see. Love the electric toothbrush, right? So what are your standards? Go ahead and in the comments over here, write me 2 or 3 of your standards. So some of you like electric toothbrushes as well. So comment over there if you like electric toothbrushes. Give me another standard, right? So for me, my standard is I also like to read at least 4 times a week. That's kind of a standard for me. I love absorbing knowledge and information. So what's a standard for you? And challenges are slightly different from the standards and goals. Challenges are usually, or sprints are usually kind of combined with and in conjunction with goals. Because those are a little more shorter term, right? Usually like a challenge is like maybe a 30-day, a 10-day, like a sprint, 15-miler, 10-miler, 5-miler, 1-miler. These are like shorter time frames. And all of those things are important in order to find success as you assess where you are and where you want to be. Ooh, I like that. Spending the majority of your day outside. That's a really good one. Now, that's a hard one during this time of year, for sure. That's an amazing accomplishment if you're able to do that one. So a big part also as we transition this next year into changing and doing something different. A normal, natural, standard human physiological response when we try to change something, Joe Dispenza calls it the river of change. When you start to dip your toe into the river of change, you're like, this thing sucked. As you're looking back, you're like, this is horrible. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something different, right? And then you start dipping your feet into the river of change as you try and cross the river. And what happens, you're like, whoa, that's cold, that's freaky, that's chaotic, that's something new. I'm not familiar with that. No thanks. I'm going to go ahead and turn back around and go right back to my bank and I'm just going to hang there. I'm not going to change because that's real scary. That's normal and natural, everybody, okay? So it's important for you to understand that parts of you are going to try and shut you down out of fear, out of safety of the old stuff being familiar, right? So it's important to be able to recognize that part of this cycle is going to be a normal, natural thing. Oh yeah, morning meditation is fantastic. That's actually one of the things that I do every single day. Prayer, meditation. I usually do a shielding and a grounding exercise every single day of the week. It really makes a huge difference for me. Now, it's really important once you work on recognizing where you are and holding space for that. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming. Like, we just had the holidays. The holidays are a really challenging time for a lot of people, especially those people who are feeling abandoned, especially those people who have change in their finances, change in their spouse, change in their living situation, change in families being around, right? Or past, I can't tell you how many people in the last little while have come into the office and we work through the trauma of spouses who have passed away, family members who passed away, significant people in their lives who passed away. So this is a really hard time. So I want you again to encourage you to look up Kirsten Neff online, do her YouTube, do like a YouTube video of hers, or Kirsten Neff is at selfcompassion.org, and hold some space. Do exercise number 2 where you hold some space and have some self-compassion for yourself so you have the actual capacity to be able to sit and climb up the tree and look and see where you have been, where you are, and where you want to go. Otherwise, you won't be able to make any forward progress either. Now, one of the simple things you can do in the very, very beginning of this process is to just dump it out. Dump out everything, where you're at, what's going on with you, on a piece of paper. Now, I also use a program called Miro. It's a really cool one where it's a open board space where you can just throw down stuff on sticky notes. You can do that too. But upload. I almost said upcheck. I apologize. Unload yourself from all the different things you've wanted to do, all the things you don't feel like you can do, all the things that have kept you back, right? Let it out. Get it out. And then what you want to do is you want to organize it. Okay? Now, it's really, really important if we're going to start with the goals aspect, for example, right? Goals are going to be kind of an overarching piece. There's a couple of pieces that we need to make sure that we pay attention to. Oftentimes what happens with goals is we don't have an organized framework to be able to utilize setting up goals. So a lot of times people will pick like these ridiculous goals. Like, I'm going to go from sitting on the couch to going into the gym 7 days a week for 5 hours at a time, which of course is totally dramatic and over the top, right? So who of you, if you want to comment over here, who of you have set themselves up for failure and had an unrealistic goal? Go ahead and put that over here in the corner. Again, I'm not sharing names necessarily, but know that other people are feeling the same way as you, myself included, right? So we're all humans, and oftentimes what we do is we live in a fantasy world and we kind of over-predict what we want to do and what we think we can do. And so it's really, really important to be able to have a framework to kind of shrink it down and give you an organized fashion to be able to manage the chaos of specifically what you're trying to accomplish, where you want to go as you're up there, as you're up in the tree, and you're kind of looking to see, ooh, right over there, there's a body of water. I can probably go get a drink over there, right? I want to go over there. And so you'll climb down the tree and you start scurrying in that direction, climb up another tree. Okay, go. Oh, crap, I went the wrong direction. Okay, I got to turn around and go back that direction to get to the body of water, right? We all have those corrections. And so the SMART goals setting up is a nice framework for finding success as you set up goals this year. So anybody who's interested in that, like I said, go ahead and mention in the comments over here that you want SMART goals. I'll give you the explanation of it as well as our own non-filled out sheet so you can sit down and go through this process. And many of you are probably familiar with this, right? So I'm not going to go over it in any massive detail, but the basic concept of the SMART goal framework is that you're going to be specific. Now, if I go and skimmy up the tree and look and I'm like, hey, I want to go in that direction, okay, maybe I'll kind of get there, right? But if I'm like, hey, right there at the edge of the mountain, there's a body of water. I want to make it there by sundown so I can set up a tent, so I can stay by the water. I can enjoy the beautiful sun as it comes down and the sun that comes back up, and I can stay by the water. I can fish and I can eat and I can, right? You see the specifics. Specifics matter, okay? What outcome would you like? How specific are you? It needs to be specifically identifiable, and you need to be able to know whether or not you can reach it or not. I'm going to know when I get to the water. Now, measurable. Is it something that you can actually measure? How will you know when you reached it? So, for example, with my fish or my water example, I know when I'm going to reach it when I can touch the water, when I can see the edge of the forest, right? All right, so we got a few of you who would like the SMART goal sheet. That's a really helpful part of being successful this year. So achievable. Is it achievable, right? So if I go up that same tree and I say, hey, look, that's like 500 miles away. I'm going to go over there. That might be a little unrealistic for me to be able to get there like overnight. So it has to be realistic as well. So you have to be able to be in reality. Oftentimes we live in fantasy because we get overloaded with a situation. So know that that's normal. That's a normal, natural thing. And so we want to make it realistic. So it's something that we can do, right? I know that if I get down from this tree, I walk 50 paces, I climb up another tree, I'm going to be a little bit closer to that thing, and I can kind of gauge it a little more specifically, and then I can start to adjust and see how far I can go while moving up a tree and then going back down. So these are things that you refine over time, right? Now, time frame. When is the realistic expectation for this goal, right? So if you go ahead and say, I'm going to lose 100 pounds in 3 weeks, unless you're planning on doing some crazy surgery, that's probably not going to be the healthiest thing and probably not going to be successful. Right? So, and then the last piece is outcomes, right? So as you go through this process and you make this, you take the chaos of what's inside of you, that where you want to go, and you put kind of in an organized frame of reference. As you kind of go along, and or if you actually achieve this goal, you want to check and see if the outcome ended up lining up with what you originally set out, so you can learn from this experience and refine this process for you now and over the years, especially specifically since we're talking about this year. We want to work on refining that process so you can be successful for this year. Because what will happen is in February, which is when most people kind of crap out on their goals, for example, because usually they made them too big and unrealistic, and they just burnt themselves out, or they forget about it, or they didn't set themselves up for they set themselves up for failure by not giving themselves an organized structure to use that framework and start activating the process of doing, 28 days before you make something part of a program for yourself and you have a new habit. Those things are all super important if you're planning on being successful this next year with what you're wanting to accomplish here in 2024. Now, one of the most important pieces that we've talked about, but in a general sense, I want to be real specific about this for you so you can have a greater chance of success this year, is can you see it? When you go up to the top of the tree, can you see it? Can you see being connected to another human being in a little more vulnerable situation? A new friend, a new spouse, a new whatever relationship. Are you able to see a new job that pays better or that provides a healthier circumstance and situation for you? Right? Whether or not you are successful with this process, the ability for you to visualize it and see it when you go to the top of that tree is a huge, huge part of your chance of success. If I go to the top of the tree and don't really know what I'm looking for, don't really know where I'm going, and then I scurry down the tree and just start walking, I don't know what I'm doing. And so the chances of actually getting there are very, very low. So the ability for you to be able to see what you're trying to accomplish, making a certain amount of money, losing a certain amount of weight, going to the gym a certain amount. So this is really important. The next piece here is understanding your why you're doing this in the first place. Okay? Because it's really easy to overload yourself and say, again, I'm going to lose 100 pounds, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week, whatever the crazy idea is. Most of the time we just make up crazy things and do too much. But the idea is to really understand the why, right? So for example, if you're like, oh, I need to go to the gym 7 days a week, and you don't know why, oftentimes you're not plugged in to a strong enough power source that's going to motivate you when times get tough, right? So this is something I teach really consistently in my clinic, to understand your why. What are you plugged into? Now, most of the people coming into the clinic, they've got some big pains. Again, we've got some of these emotional things that people have brought up recently. Sometimes it's a physical pain. For me, I see a lot of digestive stuff, anxiety, depression, trauma, complex PTSD, those sorts of things. And those really affect the body, and they mess the body up, turn systems off because they've been on too long, and the body's just overloaded and breaks down. And so it's important to understand that as you go through this process, if you understand your why. Now, why is a big step, right? So we talked about this idea of overdoing things and maybe jumping too far. I'm going to lose 100 pounds in 3 weeks. That's too much. If you understand the why, you need to be able to plug in a little bit deeper. It's going to make you way more successful. Now, what does that mean? So, for example, if you're just on the surface and saying, I just need to lose weight, I just need to go to the gym, I just need to, or you have a really surface level idea of motivation, and you're not really sure as to why you're doing it, then it's going to have its limitations in the level of power that's going to allow you to get through the hard stuff. Now, if you say, well, why do I want to go to the gym? Because I want to lose a little bit of weight. Well, okay, so why do you want to lose weight? Okay, so I want to lose weight because my joints are hurting, and I don't want to do that anymore. Okay, so what are you trying to accomplish that your joints are hurting? Well, I really want to play with my dogs, or I want to get on the floor and wrestle with my kids. Okay, ding, ding, ding. Now, did you feel that? That is a whole different level of why. If you can plug into the why, what you're doing, you're going to have a whole lot more power to be able to accomplish your goals this year. So you use the framework of the SMART goal settings or something similar, right? And then you change your standards. The SMART goals will help you work on changing a standard, will help you work on changing a skill or a particular program that over time, like the equivalent of like doing your nightly routine, right? You add it to your nightly routine, or you add it to your morning routine, like praying or doing a meditation in the morning, or workout 2 days a week, or something realistic to kind of get started from. That will give you the power and the foundation and the structure to find success, right? So you can walk across the United States if you so desire, or you can take a different structure like a car, or you can take a different structure like a plane in order to get there, okay? Now, we talked about this idea of doing too much. That's a really common problem that really crashes out a lot of people. Now, another thing is if you're making goals and or trying to change your standards around stuff that you have trauma or some sort of emotional charge around, you need to understand now is the time to add in the self-compassion and to be able to neutralize some of those things, because that's really going to suck all your energy out, and then you don't have any more energy to get up and do anything. Okay, so that's a really, really important piece. So fear holds us back. A lot of charged emotions holds us back. Those are really, really important. So, again, we talked about this idea of what ends up crashing most people in February is they've just tried to do all of this all by themselves, and they weren't able to be connected enough with what is necessary to be connected with to overcome some of your big charges, right? So between you and me, right, I got plenty of those charges too, all right? So it's really important. I have a team that I work with. I have a therapist. I have some energy workers that I exchange with every week, try and engage and have a conversation with my wife. I do a guys' night once a month. I go to the gym 3 times a week at minimum. I do self-care very, very regularly, right? So one thing over here, mention to me in the comments, what's one self-care item that you do that's small, that you do consistently to try and take care of yourself? Go ahead and mention that over here. Because again, the idea is what we're trying to do is we're trying to work together to support each other to get well and stay well. So if you don't have anybody that sticks out right away that's going to help you hold space for those new goals and skills that you're going to need help with when the times get tough, it's important to understand this is where a coach, some sort of professional, some sort of supportive care is necessary for you to build that foundation, that structure to be able to move you forward in your goals. And I know it's a pain in the butt to have to spend money on yourself and make changes and whatever else, but I don't know any other way, guys. So if you want to be successful with this, I do the same. And so it's really, really important to understand that this is another really big piece in order to be successful, especially if you haven't been able to be successful on your own, which most people aren't. And there's some level of that if you're only successful all by yourself and you're still isolated emotionally, some would wonder whether or not that's success in the first place. So I guess it depends on your standard of success. Now, again, we talked about this idea of tracking success. So you want to set a realistic expectation or timeline where you're going to regularly check in with yourself. So, who has, let's do this. Let's do some wins. Let's do some celebrations. Over here in the comments section, write me out something that you accomplished this last year that you were really pleased with and you're really happy that you were able to accomplish that. If every single one of you who's on today, just think of something like, I drank water a little bit more this last year. That would be an accomplishment, right? I read a book this year, or I read whatever. Throw something there, because another really, really important piece that you guys need to understand is you have to celebrate your success. If you're not stopping at each layer of the stage, each stage of the game, if you will, and celebrating a little bit along the way, what will happen is you're just going to kind of peter out, and it's just like, blah, nobody's supporting me, I'm not supporting myself, I'm not excited about it. So as much as when I was a kid, I hated with a purple fiery passion things like birthdays and holidays and all these celebratory things. As I have grown into an adult and as I work with people in different struggles and different situations, one of the things that I've seen over and over again that's really, really important is you have to celebrate. Celebrate together. Celebrate with yourself. Now, I want to encourage you to maybe avoid celebrating with lots of food, because lots of people have, charges with food, but celebration is really, really important. Oh, awesome. Hanging out with some girlfriends, connecting with each other. Those are some of the self-care things you do. Awesome. Anybody else have anything else that they've done this last year that they can celebrate? So as you're writing that down, awesome. Zip line, that sounds like fun. Special trip with friends and family, awesome. So it's really important to understand, again, one of the things that I feel like is most important in your health, not only in the short term and in the long term, is to recognize that you're a human being, right? So as you scurry up that tree and you look in the past, it's important to be able to look through the lens of being a human being. And one of the requirements, generally speaking, as far as I understand it from a biological standpoint, is we are a group. Group mentality is not the right word that I was thinking of, but we are a people that need connection. We are hardwired for connection, as Brene Brown talks about it. And so it's really important to understand that those of you who've talked about, for example, being isolated, that's some of the worst trauma that you can actually experience. And if you're not giving yourself enough space to recognize that social isolation is literally the worst thing that we do to the worst offenders that are in existence beyond killing them. Okay? So you need to understand that. If you didn't realize how traumatized you are by being socially isolated, just think that that's the worst thing they do to the worst offenders in the worst prisons in the world, minus killing them. So it's really important. Again, I'm going to encourage you to go to Kirsten Neff's website, selfcompassion.org, do exercise number 2, and hold space for the fact that you are severely in a traumatizing situation with all that isolation. Okay? So, oh, awesome. Walking the dog. Yes, connecting with those who you can connect with. That's super important. Yes. Consistency. Yes, absolutely. Another huge one here. Okay, so as I come to a close here, there's a couple of other things that I want to mention. Now, again, I want to thank you all for coming today and commenting. It's definitely made this more fun for me. We're also going to add this up onto YouTube. Yes, absolutely. Oh, good. Yes, seeing success in your business has allowed you to have more freedom and more energy to do things that you wanted to do and help other people. Absolutely love that. So again, as we come to a close today, there's a couple of things that we typically see in the new year, especially for people who are trying to get well. And I'm going to give this to you kind of in a staged front. Now, generally speaking, people like to lose weight at the beginning of this new year, trying to prepare for like the summer and for the year and whatever else. So again, a couple of things. If you're trying to lose weight, it's very, very important to be realistic. So for example, a lot of people want to lose weight fast. You need to know that the faster you lose weight is the faster or the higher chances of you gaining the weight right back. Statistically speaking, if you want to lose weight, 0.5 pound to 1 pound maximum every 1 to 3 weeks is a healthy weight loss. Okay. Now, if you're wanting to do a detox, you got a little bit of an extra belly, a little bit of something going on, you feel kind of cruddy and just kind of overloaded from the holiday goodies and whatever else, a nice gentle detox after you do what we refer to as an elimination diet, or if you're not motivated to do it without a detox usually includes an elimination diet, meaning you're avoiding all sugars, processed foods. Really, you're only eating like meat and veggies that you're making. That's going to be the first step, a gentle phase. If you don't want to spend a lot of money, if you don't want to spend a lot of resources, that's a first gentle, easy way to kind of get the year started. And know that a lot of us are doing that, okay? If you need some diet, if you need like a diet to kind of kickstart, I've got an autonomic recovery program that we can share with you. Just contact the office. We'll hook you up with that. That's a gentle way to do it, and you can kind of do it at your own pace. Now, if you're looking for some additional support, again, you want a group doing this, I'm open to doing like a group detox and or a group weight loss piece. They kind of coincide with each other. I have 2 standard supplementation routes that I use. I use a company called Standard Process. There's a lot of capsules in there because they're mostly whole foods. And they're very successful, and I have a 10-day and a 28-day version of that, and they do an elimination diet with that, okay? So if you're interested in that one, let us know. We can help you out with that. If you want to do something that is a little more detox-oriented rather than kind of the weight loss piece, I use something called, the name has gone from me. Anyways, we have another company that I use as well that does a little more detox. You still do an elimination diet, kind of like a Mediterranean diet with that one. Both of them are fairly similar. So if you want any help with any of those sorts of things, make sure and reach out to the office. If that's something you're interested in, a group of you are interested in doing that, let me know. I can definitely put together a group version of that. I have done that in the past. If that's something you want to kind of work on in yourself, whether in a 10-day version, a 28-day version, or just the version where you just do it for yourself where there's not cost associated with it, go ahead and contact us at the office. Again, I've got a couple of you who wants that SMART goal sheet. If we don't have your email directly at the office, because I see some of you, I'm not familiar with some of your names, if you would go ahead and personal DM Equilibrium Natural Health with your email so I can make sure that I get what you want specifically. And this will also be up on YouTube for those of you who are watching it later. Happy New Year to everybody. Any last second questions? Oh, you know what? The last thing I want to share with you is what Robert Kiyosaki talks about, and that's the way to ask a question, okay? So he talks about, and this has really been transformational for me, and this is what I want to leave you guys with tonight, is not only understanding the why, right, to be able to plug into the why so that you have enough energy to work through the difficulty of those things, and you have the people, and you have the structure, and you have the ability to kind of adjust as you need to as you go along with the stressors and the difficulties associated with it, but how? And when I say how, it is how am I going to get there? Is a different way to ask a question, right? So for example, if you want to say, I want to lose 5 pounds, okay? Some people will then go right to subconsciously, I can't lose 5 pounds, ugh. And what happens is your words just damn you up, right? It's just like this. It's like me smacking myself in the face. I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, right? So what happens is your words are super powerful. So what we want to do is we want to change our wording. And Robert Kiyosaki talks about this all the time. He says, how can I lose weight? And what that does is does this cool little brain trick in your mind where it breaks you away from that idea of spitting out that I can't do it, and you say, how can I do it? That opens you up to subconsciously questioning, how can I do that? And you leave it as an open-ended question, and you keep asking yourself, okay, so how can I lose these 10 pounds? How can I lose these 10 pounds? How can I, reconnect with people? How can I understand how to manage feeling unsafe in relationships? How can I heal from some of my trauma? So that's the main thing I want you to take away as we close up tonight. Start asking how questions for what you want to accomplish. All right, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure and a joy to be able to conversate with you today. I hope that you guys find some of that helpful to be successful this next year. If those of you who are interested, maybe I'll do another one of these at either the end of January, beginning of February, just to kind of check and see where we're at with our goals. That'll be kind of fun. So if there's enough interest in that, we'll put it on the calendar and schedule, and we'll go from there. All right, everybody, if you don't have any other questions for me, I'm going to go ahead and say Dr. Fisher signing out. Happy New Year, and we'll talk to all of you very, very soon. Dr. Fisher signing out.